Good evening. I decided to do this YouTube video because just to give a little background to those of you who might not know me, and for those of you who do and have been wondering where the fuck I've been, I wanted to do this also. My name is Ryan D. Grone. I'm a retired United States Marine Corps Lance Corporal. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes while serving in the Marine Corps in August of 1993. Over the past 20-some years now, I've been told nothing but lies about diabetes, particularly about its relationship to diet, and I've been told nothing but lies about diet and disease, and that's the primary purpose of my blog, and it's really what I'm going after with my blog, trying to get the word out that the federal government has been lying to us, and I'm fucking tired of it. I'm fed up with it. The lies have to stop. Basically, in 2011, I was homeless and living on the streets of Phoenix. My A1C, which is a measure of average blood glucose levels over a 3 to 4 month period, was 11.2%. That corresponds roughly to, I don't even fucking know, because I looked it up once, but it was so galactically retarded that I just don't even care to think about it. But it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 milligrams per deciliter. Normal blood sugar is 83 milligrams per deciliter. You'll hear a lot of misinformation about that number. A lot of people just tell you different random shit about what's normal, and they'll also tell people that that there's two different normals. There's a normal for diabetics and there's a normal for non-diabetics, and it's not true. High blood sugar causes damages the body in a number of ways. Blood touches everything, and high blood sugar damages everything blood touches. So there aren't two normals. There's one. It's 83 milligrams per deciliter. That's as defined by Dr. Richard Bernstein, who is the only credible endocrinologist in the country that treats diabetics. Now, if you've been following my blog, or if you've read my most recent post, I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to work with Senator John McCain, or rather his staff. In particular, a staff member named Tom McCanna helped me out with a lot of this, and so I'd like to express my deep gratitude to both Senator McCain and Mr. McCanna. I've said, you've heard me say that the government's been lying about diet and disease, but I guess what we have to do first is back up a little bit and define some things before I can actually give you a good idea about what it is exactly that they're lying about. Diabetes is a disease of carbohydrate metabolism. Okay, it's the body's ability to process carbohydrate is injured or deficient, and that's about as as succinct of a definition out there as you can get. It's maybe a little bit oversimplified, but that's basically what it boils down to. 2,600 years ago, the ancient Indian physician Sushruta encountered a disease he called Madhumeha, which when translated from the Sanskrit means literally a honey-like urine. And so 2,600 years ago, this doctor in India pretty much already had it all figured out. He was able to determine the presence of excess sugar by tasting his diabetic's urine, and if it had a sweet taste, then he knew that that was his objective measure of whether one was a diabetic or had Madhumeha, as he called it. He also proposed an etiology for diabetes, saying that Madhumeha was brought on by a gluttonous overindulgence in rice, flour, and sugar. Not bacon, eggs, and T-bones, not pork rinds, pepperoni, or sausages, none of that bullshit. Rice, flour, and sugar. It's brought on by the overconsumption of carbohydrate, And as in the case with me and many diabetics, there's also what they call an autoimmune component, a weakened. There's some sort of attack that your body launches against your own immune system in autoimmune events, and in diabetics, it destroys pancreatic beta cell function, and the pancreas is the organ that produces and delivers insulin to your blood, and insulin is the hormone that takes sugar out of your blood, moves it into the cells for use as energy. When the energy is no longer needed, when the cells have enough energy, the remaining sugar is turned into fat by insulin. Insulin will build fat if unopposed. Now, this is pretty much the fact. Excuse me. This is pretty much the facts about what diabetes is. The federal government has been lying to us about diabetes since the 1940s, and they ratcheted up their campaign of lies in the 1970s. The known Marxist senator George McGovern, senator from South Dakota, presidential candidate, ran against Nixon in '72. After his defeat in that election, had to find some do-gooder bullshit to do, so he decided that fats cause everything and fats cause heart attacks. And of course this fit in with his Marxist ideology, his Darwinist ideology that elevates animals onto the same level as human beings, and it was something that that he did, that he knew he could do because he did because he felt like he could manipulate people. He himself never went onto the diets that he recommended, and yet now our own First Lady is running around the country exercising fat-colored kids to death, feeding them nothing but rice flour and sugar. So, and that it's all based on these dietary guidelines, which claimed that, which asserted a link between high-fat diets and high cholesterol, and high cholesterol and heart disease. The link between high cholesterol and heart disease is dubious at best. That's a gross oversimplification. Lipid profiles do have some bearing on a risk for heart disease, but it's not just strictly a matter of high cholesterol, high total cholesterol. That's what most people think. Cholesterol comes in a variety of components. The three most notable ones are HDL, LDL, and triglycerides. HDL, high HDL or elevated HDL is a measure of protection against coronary risk. Elevated LDL is also a measure of risk, conversely, and the most reliable predictor of coronary artery disease is elevated triglyceride levels. All of these factors have been found to deteriorate for people, particularly diabetics, when they're on a high carbohydrate diet. HDL is the only cholesterol high-fat diets raise. It's high carbohydrate diets that raise LDL and triglycerides. The liver is unable to recognize the difference during periods of elevated blood sugar, and hence it's the high carbohydrate diets that are causing the dyslipidemia, not the other way around. Also, with respect to heart disease, a far greater risk of people with elevated blood sugars over a prolonged period of time, particularly, are at a far greater risk of heart disease, not coronary artery disease, but instead a condition known as I can't even fucking remember, but it's the heart muscle gets wrecked by the high blood sugar, and it's cardiomyopathy, literally a sick heart, a sick, weak heart. And the sick, weak heart doesn't happen because there's too much cholesterol in our diets. It happens because there's too much carbohydrate in the diets. The federal government is lying about this. They've been lying. They plan to continue to lie. In 2015, they're going to reissue their dietary recommendations, and it's going to be the same old sorry-ass bullshit that they've been spouting at people since the 40s, but particularly they really ratcheted up the aggressiveness with which they began telling these lies back in '77 when the Senate Select Committee on Hunger and do-gooder bullshit passed these regulations, and since then, well, that should give you a pretty good idea what's going on with respect to that. Now, another thing that I don't know whether, well, if you've been reading my blog, you should be aware of it, and if you've been watching Fox News, you should be aware of it. Although, if you haven't been watching Fox News or reading my blog, it's doubtful that you even know that this is going on because the mainstream media hasn't been covering it. I treat at the Phoenix VA hospital, and they are systematically mistreating diabetics. This hasn't been reported yet. I hope that it will be, that it'll be covered and that it'll be investigated, and the systematic mistreatment of diabetics will stop at the Phoenix VA. They are using the wrong medications to treat diabetes. They are in conjunction with the wrong diets, most specifically. They're overusing insulin. They're overprescribing statins, statin drugs, which are supposedly lower cholesterol. Nobody really knows whether they do or they don't, and it doesn't even fucking matter because if they lower HDL along with LDL, they're gonna. It's the cost benefit is gonna. It's not gonna affect the ultimate cost benefit on it, and most importantly, in addition to that, in addition to spending all this money on statins and the overuse of insulin and insulin pumps is another thing that they like to hang on people. Wouldn't it be great to have a pump? Unfortunately, pumps don't work. They're linked to all sorts of bad shit, and they're very expensive. I don't see how they could be any more convenient than multiple daily injections of insulin. I mean, I think that there's just really this desire to play on the stigma of having the people encounter that have to take insulin shots. Like you're supposed to fucking sneak around and like it's supposed to be like it's some big imposition on the rest of the world to have to watch a diabetic test their blood sugar or take a fucking insulin shot. But I mean, that kind of ignorance is going to continue to be in play. And I mean, it's one of those things. It's the world isn't a perfect place, and we're all fallen sinners, and it's just one of those things. But what's really disgusting to me is how they really use this unwarranted stigma that's been placed on insulin injections. They're not painful. They're not. Obviously, the more you have to take, the more it interferes and disrupts with your day. But it's not something that insulin pumps really make any difference. You still have to fucking drag your pump around. They're way more expensive. The insulin that you end up taking more insulin, and there's a number of problems with it. So, like I was saying, instead of spending money. So they're spending all this money on insulin pumps, on statin drugs, on the overuse of insulin. They're prescribing the wrong diets, which is what is causing them to have to overuse insulin. And but yet at the same time they won't pay for or prescribe testing supplies, test strips to type 2 diabetics who don't take insulin. Now, incidentally, the vast majority of cases of service-connected diabetes are veterans with service-connected diabetes are service-connected for type 2 diabetes. They're service-connected for the condition because it's been theorized that Agent Orange causes type 2 diabetes. I don't know if I buy that or not. I think it's just cover that the Marxists that spit on those boys when they came home. I think it's just cover because the same Marxist that spit on our boys when they came home from fighting that war, spitting on them again and by prescribing these diets that are killing them, then they're refusing to give them the tools they need to fight this thing. And it's really not that bad. It's something that can be beat, and especially type 2 diabetes, typically if it's treated properly, it's far less damaging. It doesn't have to be that expensive, and their whole basis for not paying for test strips for type 2 diabetics is that it fails cost benefit. I don't think that's true. I think if you looked at the numbers, if you gave an honest look at the numbers, what you'd find is that diabetics with normal blood sugar have a dramatically reduced risk of a number of diabetic complications that diabetics ultimately can develop, including heart disease, but not just heart disease. Diabetics also are at a higher risk for kidney disease, diabetic retinopathy, which is an eye disease, and amputations, and a host of other expensive, debilitating health issues. And if we could prevent this by putting these people on the right diet, for one thing, or at least letting them know about it, and by giving them the tools to monitor their own blood sugars, then I think that at the end of the day, we'd save ourselves a lot of money. But that's what's going on at the VA. It's part and parcel of the other things that are going on at the VA. What you may have heard about is what some of you out there may have heard of if you watch Fox News particularly. They've covered it very well. They've done an outstanding job of real reporting. The Phoenix VA was keeping a secret list. Their hospital clearly can't handle its patient load. There's way too many veterans that are being forced into the system. There's way too many people being forced into the system by President Hussein Obama. And the place is spilling out. And then when you couple that with the fact that on top of that, they're force feeding, they're fucking handing out cookies to diabetics at their diabetes education classes, cookies at a fucking diabetes education class, and they can't figure out why they've got all these diabetic amputees spilling out of their podiatry clinics and flooding their primary care physicians and all the specialty clinics, really. And so instead of trying to figure it out and do the right thing, what the folks at the Phoenix VA did was, and I don't know who's directly responsible for it. I think Sharon Hellman, the director, who's now on administrative leave, I think she probably knew. The IG report's going to come out, and we'll know who knew what at that point, and then we'll be able to take some action on this. But what they did, because of this gross overload of the system, I believe probably it may have even come on authority higher than Hellman. I think Shinseki might have had a part in it. I think President Hussein Obama may have had a part in it. They were trying to cover up the fact that there was this huge backlog of patients. Sharon Hellman was bought off. She was going to be paid a $9,000 bonus for showing that that vets weren't waiting, that they were only waiting a couple weeks. So they made two lists. They made a secret list to shit can all the people that they didn't have time for onto. And then the people they did have time for got on the real list, and that way it was showing to the, whoever actually looks at that fucking shit, it was showing that vets weren't waiting. And in the meantime, 40 vets died waiting for care. It's been suspected, although I think that I don't know how they're coming up with this number 40 exactly, and it could be more, it could be less. But when you consider the systematic mistreatment of diabetes, which hasn't been getting the attention that needs to start getting the attention, when you factor that into the equation, I believe that the number of dead could exceed 40 by an order of magnitude, by at least an order of magnitude. So that's all I have for right now. I just want to let you guys know, especially for anybody who might be watching this that knows me, or I'm okay, and I'm doing my best to try to stop this bullshit. And if you have any interest in learning anything more about this, about what I've been going through, and about what the truth is about diabetes, and about the relationship between chronic illnesses and diet, visit my website or my blog. It's www.roguediabetic.info. Thanks.